So we're going to the next session now where we're going to have two young adults talk about the strategy that they're using to help people in their age group save. So thank you, ladies. So thank you so much. Let me just kind of cover a couple of things that I've talked about and what we're going to talk about. So as I talk to you about money, saving money is hard. But most of us, many people, even those who are in lower incomes, have the ability to save with the right information and the right programs. You know how how to do this work, we change because of new technologies. There's so many technologies out there now. So today's youngest generations are digital natives, right? You all know that. Click the glance to save. Growing up with the internet and the digital financial platforms is a normal and important part of their lives. Here to talk about how technology is shaping our latest generations of financial consumers and investors are a millennial, right here, and a Gen Z, who are both active in the financial education space. Please welcome Tiffany Grant and Mary Esposito. All right, welcome to you both. So Tiffany, let's start with you. I want you to share with the audience, that you're an entrepreneur at heart who discovered that helping others with their personal finances was your passion. You're an accredited financial counselor, you have an MBA, and now you're pursuing a PhD. Go ahead, girl. Through your online platform, Money Talk with Tiff, you offer financial advice through a blog, a podcast, social media, and one-on-one counseling. You also speak on financial topics in front of groups like this one today. So you are so young. Oh my gosh, I have a daughter almost on your age, although, you have so much more to accomplish. And I haven't mentioned that you have, wait for it, 3 children, right? So tell us about how you got started on this financial journey.
Yeah, thank you. So once upon a time, so there were 2 pivotal moments that really got me started on my journey. One was being a teen mom. So I was pregnant with my first son at 17, and I had him at 18. And it was at that moment I was like, okay, Tiffany, you have to get your stuff together. Like, you have a whole life that's going to be depending on you, and so you need to kind of get into shape. The second moment was getting denied for a credit card at a credit union that I banked with since I was 16. And all I asked for, because I was terrified of credit, so going back to, how you're brought up and your feelings about money and things like that, a lot of people in my immediate family had gone through bankruptcies and foreclosures, so I didn't want credit. But I realized that you had to have credit to have credit. So I went to get approved for $200, that's all I asked for, and they denied me. So that was a really pivotal moment, and when I really started getting on track. And then I started this brand because people kept coming to me about information. And I'm like, if one person has this question, there's probably hundreds of others. So that's how I got started.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Can we show the audience an example of Tiffany's work?
A lot of how we shape our spending habits, shape our beliefs about money, it all comes from our environment. So whether that is, from growing up in a household where it was a bunch of spenders, or in a household where you didn't have much, or as you got older and you got your own money, maybe you mishandled it at one point and now that shapes your future. Or it could be, the friend circle that you have, maybe everybody's spending a certain way or everybody's, acting a certain way. It could be social media. It could be there's so many things around us that influence how we spend our money and how we relate to our money.
Oh, that's great. I love how you use your story to teach others. So Mary, she's the baby up here. Mary, you are just an undergraduate student down the road at Chapel Hill, right? And you are an entrepreneur as well, with 2 thriving businesses, right? You're also the host of an online platform, Money with Mary. I love that. I love alliteration. You have a social media account with over 155,000 followers dedicated promoting financial literacy among Gen Z. Let's show one of the videos to give the audience a sense of your work.
It's a quick life hack for anybody who is struggling to pay off debt. You need to pick a strategy and stick to it. According to Business Insider, here are 2 of the most popular approaches to debt management. First, we have the snowball method. List your debts from smallest to largest, regardless of interest rates. Make the minimum payments on all your debts, but put all your extra money towards your smallest debt. Once the smallest debt is paid off, you take the extra money you were putting towards it and add it to the payment of the next smallest debt. This creates a snowball effect as you move from the smallest to largest debt. Okay, let's get into the pros and cons. The pros: paying off smaller debts first can give you a sense of accomplishment and motivation to keep going. Plus, as you eliminate each smaller debt, you have fewer payments to keep track of. For the cons, since you're not prioritizing high interest debts, you might end up paying more in interest over time. Okay, second strategy, the avalanche method. This time, list your debts from highest interest rate to lowest. As with the snowball method, you make the minimum payment on all debts. However, this time, any extra money is put towards the debt with the highest interest rate first. Once this highest interest rate debt is paid off, you move on to the next highest interest rate debt, and so on. Let's get into the pros and cons. Pros: by tackling high interest debts first, you save money on interest payments in the long run, theoretically reducing your debt faster than with the snowball method. The cons: it might take longer to see your first debt completely paid off, which might be demoralizing. Also, it isn't very easy to keep track of interest rates. Hear them together so you can see the difference. Definitely do your own research to see which one works for you. Consistency is key, but I believe in you. Good luck, and be sure to follow Money with Mary for more personal finance videos.
Oh, I love that. Wasn't that interesting? I love it. So, Mary, tell us how you got started as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so my journey actually started when I learned how to knit in middle school. I started selling my knitted products, scarves, plushies, scrunchies to family and friends, and then I created an Instagram page to further market my products. I ended up growing and scaling this business throughout high school and generating quite a bit of money through quarantine from knitting stuff. And figuring out what I wanted to do with this money was how I stumbled across investing. And then learning about investing is what piqued my interest in personal finance as a whole.
Wow. Can I adopt you? Because you'll take care of me in my old age, right? Yeah. So listen, let's talk about the delivery of the information, because you both deliver it in a similar way, but in different ways. Tiffany, what influenced your decision to go the route that you've gone to put out financial information?
Yeah, so when I first started my company, it was back in 2017. And back then, blogging was big. And so that's how I started. I was like, okay, let me just put a website out there. Let me write a few blog posts to chronicle my journey to be debt-free by 30, because that's what I was on. Spoiler, I didn't make it, but that's neither here nor there. And so it started with the blog. And then podcasts started becoming the wave. And so I started a podcast in 2019. And then all throughout, I've been on social media. So for me, I used a strategy of following my audience. Where is my audience at this moment? Where are my fellow millennials? Where are my Gen Z? And that is where I kind of tweak where I am. So if you look me up, I'm everywhere, but that's by intention because I know where my audience is.
That's good. And Mary, what about you? Why these really interesting TikTok videos?
Yeah, so through my self-education, I realized how little schools had taught us about money. I feel like we as young adults are not equipped with the financial skills necessary to matriculate into the real world successfully. I feel like, that's a big deal. Without a solid understanding of this, we don't know how to position ourselves for financial success and stability. And so that's how I hope through Money with Mary to help bridge this knowledge gap and encourage especially other young women to get involved in personal finance. And so when I was evaluating how I wanted to reach this group of people, my target audience is Gen Z, so other people my age. From personal experience, I know that the 2 most popular trending social media apps right now are Instagram and TikTok. And so when I was brainstorming where I wanted my platform to be, I knew that I could reach the majority of my target demographic on these social media apps.
So Facebook is out. It's just old people now, right? No, Tiffany, Facebook is still on? Okay.
Yeah, Facebook is still a thing for me. So that's one of my main platforms is still Facebook. Because millennials, a lot of my classmates and things like that, we're still on Facebook. So
how do you each come up with the topics? Like, what motivated you to do, for example, the video on how to pay off debt? I personally like the snowball effect. I think psychologically that works. But what made you decide to go that route? And then Tiffany, how do you come up with your podcast topics?
Yeah, so I created Money with Mary to satisfy a need, and that means asking my audience directly, what do you need? And so I like to be very interactive on my social media, and that's great because social media allows me to do that. And so I can ask my audience questions, what videos do you want to see? What questions do you have? And then I can create videos that directly help them with those issues.
That's great. And what about you? How do you come up with your topics?
Similar to that. So same thing, I'm very active on social media, and even on the podcast, I invite people to ask their questions so I can answer them on the podcast. So I'm very in tune with what my audience is thinking about at the time. And then also I get content from my clients. So I work one-on-one with clients all the time, and those questions that they have, the things that they're going through, those are things that I also disseminate to the broader audience because other people are probably going through it too.
That's great. That's good. So let's talk about technology and behavioral finance, right? So let's look at today's digital natives, Gen Zers. Technology is central, right, Mary, to how they get their financial information and access financial products. So I want to just share a couple of statistics with you guys. So for the Gen Zers, they're investors, right? Like that's really, I think it's so interesting. Between the ages of 18 and 25, over half, 6% reported at least one investment. That's really cool, right? And of those, 25% began investing before age 18. So technology is driving their behavior in important ways. Many of them use mobile apps to invest. 2/3 of them said that the ability to make small investments was the most important reason why they decided to invest. I'm sure both of you guys can attest to that, right? And can we show them the screen about how they invest, how they get their financial information? So 48% get them from social media, 47% through internet searches. And I love this statistic. 45%, they still ask mommy and daddy. And then 40% friends. Have you found that to be true as you are speaking to young adults?
Absolutely. Social media is huge. And for me, it's a gift and a curse because a lot of times I find myself as like the Twitter warrior or, because there's so much misinformation out there too. So for me, that's the biggest thing. It's like there's a lot of good information, but there's also a lot of bad information. And so trying to find that balance with social media, I try to teach people, do your own research. Even if you hear something, just do your own research, see if it fits your situation. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, if you're not making 100,000, then you're not making enough, or whatever the next big thing is, and that just goes rampant on social media. So I'm part of the mindset where you have to really dig into your situation and see what works for you. So for me, social media is a gift and a curse.
So for Mary, how do you combat the good and the bad information?
Yeah, I definitely echo that. It can be really hard to discern what is misinformation, and there is a lot of it out there. A rule of thumb that I have is if it seems too good to be true, it likely is. For example, if someone is promising that you can make $5,000 a week Forex trading, it's probably a scam. I also always do my own due diligence, my own fact checking, just making sure that I'm checking multiple sources of information. I like to think of it like this: just like you need to diversify the stocks in your portfolio, you also need to diversify your sources of information. And that helps you keep an open mind, and therefore you're able to pick up on any red flags.
Do you get into any battles with people online? I mean, in terms of pointing out bad information?
All the time. All the time. And, honestly, I love it because even if I'm going back and forth and, maybe I'm getting flack or, people are saying stuff to me, it might get someone to think, So even if it's like one person reading the thread and they're like, oh, she might have a good point, at least that one person has now, change their mindset around the thing. And then another strategy is I cover the things that are being talked about. So like in 2020, when everybody was talking about the susus, and I'll do air quotes because it's not the true susus, but I educated on that. Or when people are talking about infinite banking and using life insurance to be your own bank, I covered that on my blog. So I cover things that are the trending topic to cover, okay, these are the points they're making, but also think about this. So I feel like it's important to hit on both as well. Even if I don't agree, I'll still cover it.
So for those who don't know Susu or that whole trend, because I covered it for the Post as well, and it drove me nuts. So can you explain to them what a Susu, there's a traditional Susu and then the fake ones that are crazy. Can you explain to them what that is?
Yeah, really quick. So a Susu, the traditional Susu, which is prominent in Black and brown communities, Caribbean, Hispanic communities, is where a group of people, they come together and each week they put in a certain amount of money. And also each week someone gets the pot. So everybody's putting in, the community's putting in, and then they switch on who gets the pot. So this is something that has been going on for generations and generations in those communities. Now in 2020, someone saw that idea and they said, I think I can make money from this. And so what was going rampant on social media, I mean, I was getting into it with family and friends, like it was to that point, but they made it more like a pyramid scheme, and they just called it a Susu. So one post that I made on social media was drawing out, okay, this is the water, because they gave it funny names, water, fire, air, whatever.
Crazy stuff.
Right.
It's crazy
So I'm like, okay, this is water, this is fire, and once I was done drawing it out, it made a pyramid. So I said, what does this look like to you? So that's the thing, they take sometimes ideas that are already prominent and then twist it for their own financial gain. So that's another thing that we're working against too.
So Mary, I'm going to ask you a question about investing, taking off on this whole Susu scam. So can you show the slide about investing, there we go, it's already up there. So lots of young adults have this, they call it FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And so one Fenrir study showed that half of Gen Zers investors, this is how they invest, 57% in cryptocurrency, which drives me insane. 32% in individual stocks and 28% in meme stocks. Now, what do you think about this trend? And please tell me you don't have no crypto. Well, you do have some crypto. Oh, Mary.
No, listen. No, hear me out. No. I put, the majority of my investments are in stocks, and what I typically recommend people to do is do their own research, obviously, but look into index funds for diversification, and then, also individual stocks. I like blue chip stocks, Apple, Microsoft, my favorites. I do have some money in crypto, but I only put expendable income money that if it does tank, I could live without. And I am in Bitcoin some, but just for fun. So yeah, but typically, prioritize the index funds, the individual stocks, and then crypto is if you have a little bit of fun money and you just want to throw it in there and see what it does.
All right, okay, It's okay, I'm working on that. No, so Tiffany, how are you telling your folks what are you telling them about investing?
Yeah, so echoing Mary, do your own due diligence. When everybody was talking about crypto, or even if we get off of crypto, let's talk about when AMC, everybody was like, oh, invest in AMC. And so for me, I'm like, okay, let me tell people what this is doing. So I explained, this is how the stock market works. Once a lot of people put in, the price is going to go up. Once people start pulling out, the price is going to start tanking. And so for me, educating people just a tad further on the things that they're seeing is what's important to me. So I'll take trending stuff, and I'm like, okay, but let's break it down.
Yeah.
Because it looks good, but that's because it's on a wave. It's going up. And usually when it's on a wave, that means you've already missed the boat. So at this point, it's once the people that started this wave that were dead set on, oh, let's invest in AMC, let's do this, let's do that. Once they start pulling their money out, it's going to be a trickle effect the same way it went up. So just for me, educating around those topics is what's important.
Go ahead, Mary.
I also want to echo that. It's like pump and dump schemes or what they call them. And it can be hard to realize that and figure out, is this a pump and dump scheme? And so that's why, I personally don't talk about crypto on my account just because I feel like my audience is more so people who are looking for an introduction to personal finance, and I don't necessarily believe that crypto should be a part of that curriculum.
That's good. That's good. Now, how do you address this whole issue of saving? Because, as I talked about in my keynote, there's a lot of emotion about that. And you guys coming from it from a different perspective. You as, starting off as a teen mom, realizing, you got to do something about that. And Mary, I don't know, you were just born with just, to be so young, to be in this, to have grasped that whole thing. How do you make sure that your audience is prioritizing savings over some of this crazy investing stuff that they read about?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. I do a savings challenge every so often where it's very simple and, it's just a quick PDF and it has numbers from 1 to 50 and then they can cross off, as they put it in their envelope. So very heavy on the cash part of saving.
The envelope system.
So I do that. I also talk about, high yield savings accounts. I just did a blog post about that recently. So just educating people about the different savings vehicles as well. My background's in HR, so I talk about HSAs and I talk about using their company benefits to save. So saving is really heavy now. I will say, going back to the emotional side of things, I'm a super saver. And that's because of how I was raised with a household of spenders. So I also teach people, it's good to save, but at the same time, make sure you're enjoying life too, because I had to learn that. I was saving way too much and not enjoying anything. So I teach people that there's a balance, it's a continuum, and really you want to be in the middle. So that's part of what I teach.
Yeah, Mary, how much of your platform is devoted to saving?
I would say definitely a lot of my platform is devoted to saving. I find a very effective way to talk about saving is by using math and examples. So for example, comparing the APY of a regular savings account with a high yield savings account, doing the math on that, how 0.01% versus 5%, and how much that can accumulate and compound over time, especially for Gen Z. Our biggest asset is time. So factoring that into the equation in terms of emotional spending, what really changed my mindset was realizing that the way to establish wealth, only half of it is earning more, the other half is saving more. Right. And so that is how the philosophy that I adopt on my account.
Let me ask you this. So, do you think young investors and savers only want to hear information from your age group, or does it, because a lot of people have organizations that are not necessarily run by these two dynamic people. Does it matter if you're young or old in terms of giving the advice? And give me hope here, because I'm a lot older than y'all.
All right, let me change my answer now. I think it does matter to a certain extent. I feel like representation matters in all aspects. So if people see themselves, they're more likely to listen to the information, in my opinion. And so I think it does matter. Now, I say that to also say there's giants like Fidelity and NerdWallet and things like that where they're putting out good information, people still intake it, and it's still good information. So I think it just depends. I think if it's like a social media strategy, for instance, where someone has to be front and center, it does help if that's your target demographic for that person to look like them. I think it does help.
I can get that. And pull my hair back in a little ponytail. Mary, what do you think? Does it matter who's delivering the information?
I think that, for my account, I've definitely niched down to Gen Z, and that's how you really resonate with an audience is by focusing on a target audience. So you can develop that, marketing mix. I think that, you can take what applies, and just for my account, most of what I say applies specifically to Gen Z.
But is the information different? It's just delivered. It's just delivered differently. Like I noticed the little.
Yeah.
I can't do all that.
So the delivery is different. I've noticed that for Gen Z, for example, the attention span is shorter. A lot of focus on edutainment, which is the intersection between education and entertainment. So for example, another way that I deliver personal finance education is I compile a bunch of memes, relevant memes. I compiled a bunch about, the Super Bowl, and then in my caption, I detail, how is the Super Bowl a marketing ploy, stuff like that, So people are drawn in for the entertainment aspect, and then they also get an educational aspect. So that delivery method would probably not work for maybe, an older age demographic.
It's okay, you can say it, it's all right. So, okay, just this is like a little thing. I'm trying to figure this out. So why are people putting on makeup and cooking while they're giving financial information? What's that? Does that, that just drives me a little crazy. It's like, I don't want to, what?
So going back to knowing your audience, so like Mary said, they want that entertainment piece, right? So you could be doing anything. Like I have friends, I'm not super huge on the entertainment piece. I'm like here to educate. Like I just want to educate you. But I have friends where they'll just have like B-roll of them on vacation or whatever, and over it they're talking about financial stuff. So it's like the edutainment aspect is really important with social media nowadays, because also people are more drawn to that. Like when I just put out straight information, it's like, okay, Tiffany, like I care, but I don't care. So you have to make people kind of want the information.
And you think that as well, Mary?
Yeah.
Are they getting it while you're putting on the lipstick and the eyebrow stuff? It's pouring into their soul.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, my generation, we are inundated with different posts, with TikTok and shortened attention span. And so you need to find a way to hook them in. And so, usually what I'll do is I use graphs in that one, so I couldn't, but I'll knit. I can knit without looking, so I'll knit while talking, and so, people are focused on the knitting, people are focused on the colorful text overlays, people are focused on my face, and so I did the little, the face filter on that last one just to get people, wasn't expecting that, and now my video is more memorable.
I see. Okay, so hook them with that. All right, let's move to one last part that I want to talk about, is the future for financial professionals. So you've got all the social media out there, you guys on your TikTok. Is there room for financial professionals to take it to another level with the young adults?
Absolutely. There's always, in my opinion, there's always room. People will say, oh, well, blogging's dead. Well, guess what? I know six-figure bloggers. Or people will say, oh, podcast is getting oversaturated. Well, guess what? I know six-figure podcasters. So it's like there's always room in the different areas, and there's always room for professionals. Because like I said at the beginning, there's so much misinformation out there, and one thing that I do educate people on are credentials. So there's so much ABC soup, it's like, who can I trust for this information, or who's the right person to go to for what I'm looking for? All of that can be confusing for the consumer. So in my opinion, there's always room for professionals in the industry. I think it's just a matter of educating people on what it is that you do, how you fit into the puzzle. So if they are a DIY investor, how can they benefit from a financial advisor, and so on and so forth. So I think for me, it's more the educational piece of how they fit into the puzzle. You kind of have to do more of that, since now people, see social media, like, oh, I can do it, I can do that, I can do that. So now you have to do more educating into how you fit into their picture.
Have you used a financial professional, financial planner yourself? Just curious.
Personally, no, just because I have so much knowledge around it. I do have friends that I do ask certain questions. So I have CFPs in my corner, I have CPAs, I have all EAs, all types of financial professionals that I can say, hey, what do you think about this? Or hey, that type of thing. But as far as actually engaging with one, no.
Right. So Mary, what do you think? What is the role of financial professionals in what you do in getting the information out to young adults?
Yeah, I would say social media is the way to go, especially if you're looking to tap into the younger consumers such as Gen Z and Gen Alpha now. Social media, I personally believe it's the cheapest, fastest, and most effective way to reach these young consumers. If brands are interested in tapping into this demographic, then I think they should get their Gen Z interns on Instagram immediately.
That's a really good idea. Y'all hear that? That's good. So what is the barriers, do you think, for young adults in terms of getting the right information at the right time without being susceptible to the scams, the schemes, the unrealistic income projections that you see on social media? Mary, let's go with you, and then Tiffany.
Yeah, well, first I think the biggest barrier is lack of knowledge about personal finance education. I think that first there needs to be a solid educational curriculum in schools, and that can mandate, that can fact check in schools, develop a curriculum that is accurate and that is keeps people educated. I think also, though, to prevent misinformation, I touched on this earlier, but just diversifying your sources of information and figuring out using your own critical thinking, is this a reputable source? For example, I really like Investopedia. Investopedia is a great resource.
Oh, yeah, it's a great resource.
I recommend.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I see Sarah's on the sideline. We're going to have some screenshots of their social media platform, but I really appreciate what you're doing to help get out the information about the importance of saving and checking up on resources. And it's been a joy talking to you all. And if my kids don't take care of me in my old age, I'm going to give you my information. So, so I'm going to be well taken care of based on what you've been doing in your career. Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand, y'all.
Where are all my fellow Gen Xers? We got any in the room? A couple of us. Okay, good. So again, I want to thank our panel. That was really great. And I'm wondering how many of us older adults with Gen Z and Millennials were taking diligent notes about, I suspect a lot of subscribers after this. They're going to go home and share that with their families. We had one question come in for the audience that you touched upon just a little bit, I think, in your remarks, Tiffany. But the question was, there's an infographic in our packet on Gen Z having more personal finance training than our older generations, but that they're also the least financially literate. And so are we teaching incorrectly, or is there no substitute for actual experience when it comes to learning? Can anyone comment on that?
So, in my opinion, I believe that delivery matters. So if there's programs where, let's say, for instance, someone is teaching financial literacy to a younger generation, if they're going in with just this lecture style and it's like, wah, 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 then of course it's not going to stick. So I believe that you really need to be interactive, get them involved, make it relevant, tie in some, current events, current topics, so that way it's more engaging. So even with the onset of like it being in schools and things like that, I mean, how many of us, are excited about parallelogram season, right? So it's like you learn these topics, but if you don't have the way to implement also, like seeing real world situations, then it's not going to stick like it should.
So some real good examples of things that are happening in real life. And Mary, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say, echoing off that, education, I think that knowledge comes only after experience. And so I personally believe that, getting a job as a teenager helped teach me the value of money. Now I had some skin in the game, and time is money, and starting my business. And that's how I got familiar with money, is by immersing myself in it. Agree, it's important to develop a curriculum in the classroom, but you really can't fully grasp the concept of personal finance until you get out in the real world and you practice it.
Yeah, and about just one last thing, that statistic about the influence of parents, I don't think that we engage them enough with the young adults. When you have programs, there should be a parallel program with the parents, because you can give them information, but if they're going home and it's not being reinforced, then the hurdle is going to be a lot harder. I think it's very important that you involve the parental influence, whoever that might be. In my case was my grandmother, in the education process, because only then, you cannot teach my kids to tithe, but I can. And if I'm at your program, you have to incorporate that value into your programs.
And can I just add really quick to that point? I know our focus is shifting to Gen Z and Gen Alpha now coming up, but don't forget about the Gen X, the millennials, the people before them, because like she said, they have a big influence. Like I teach at a university, I teach freshmen, and they're like, oh, I asked my parents about, their total rewards or, what type of benefits packages and things like that. So if the parents don't know, then, it kind of stops there sometimes. So.
We got the money, just saying.
Well, thank you all. That's all the time we have. But please join me in thanking our panelists once again.